Yeah, I mean, as he's kind of said, kind of represents like progress. He kind of represents progress and seeing what they can do. So he kind of paved the way for a lot of new things that NASA could do. And they know that they could feasibly carry something like this out again. So I mean, it's kind of like it's just kind of it's more, that's more like symbolic
Yeah.
of just achievements, I guess.
Also, like, I mean, it had a purpose at one point when, like, he had the samples of all the rocks and, like, what soil it was in. But it really kind of, it really fell apart when, like, you couldn't bring any of the samples home. So, like, there's really no point. Like, they didn't get any information out of it. I mean, yeah, like you said, he paved the way, but was it really worth that much money and, like, time? Because, like, millions of people or thousands of people die a day. I mean, saving one person is not worth, in my opinion, that much money.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, NASA really doesn't do that much that's like completely necessary. Everything they do is in the sake of progress, in the sake of paving the way for new ideas and new movements. So I feel like it's not as much just about saving him. It's more it's kind of what they do all the time. Like NASA really never does something that's like completely necessary. So. Do you have any questions? Any more?
Yeah. So so an excerpt from their book. I forget like the exact quote, but Martinez is like, "Do you have faith?" And then Lewis is like, "I don't believe in God. I'm not religious." And then he's like, "I'm not saying faith in God. I'm saying faith in Watney." I feel like that was like symbolic. I feel like that meant like that it like that your faith in your destiny is all in your own hands, and like and no one else can control that for you. You have to pull yourself out of the dirt when you fall down. And like I feel like that was the embodiment of what Mark's character was. I mean, he was the definition of grit and determination.
Yeah.
So how'd you guys feel about that quote?
Yeah, I feel like a lot of I think yeah I agree with that. But like I feel like 3/4 of what was done there was done by Mark. And I mean, NASA did
by
help.
what?
It was done by Mark.
Oh yeah,
Like
exactly.
NASA helped, but they couldn't have done anything if he didn't have the motivation that he had, and he didn't have the determination, and he didn't like if he wasn't motivated to get himself out of like hardships and fear. He was motivated by fear really. So I feel like he had faith in himself, so that was enough to get him out of that bad situation.
Yeah. So another point in the book was there like NASA was disconnected from Mark because of the like magnet thing with the with Pathfinder, so they couldn't communicate. So like he was kind of left on his own, and yet he still found a way to pull himself through. So that just shows like even like if he didn't have help from NASA, he could have still done what he did. Like he no matter what situation you're put in, if you have the grit and determination, you don't have to rely on anybody else. Your destiny is your own making. That's like manifest destiny, I think.
Well, I mean, he couldn't have gotten out of that situation without NASA though, because they sent over the ship.
I mean, yeah, but NASA did give him some help. It wasn't just completely young, so.
Yeah.
But yeah.
It was more like NASA was kind of writing instructions, but he was really motivating himself. He was doing the majority of the work.
Yeah, but like it's like when you're in like when you're doing like homework, right? Like you could just like write stuff, but like the whole point of having help is like you don't know what to do.
Yeah.
So like the NASA was kind of showing him like, oh, you put the reactor in the switch, like you know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, it also shows how people had faith in him, like how all his crew members, all the crew members, like risked a year of their lives, and they risked their lives too, going out into space just to save him. So they had faith that he could do well, and so having all those people believing in him, I think, really helped. And so there were so many people like encouraging him. But for the majority of the time, it was himself encouraging himself. So
I think you brought up a great point of how, like, they needed the astronauts to come back, and like how they actually risked a lot for themselves. Like the girl whose like mom had Alzheimer's, and like she left, and Martinez had a wife and children, and he left for another year. Yeah, I definitely think that it was pretty. It's a team effort, honestly.
Yeah.
Like, I was talking about like how like you have to do it by yourself, but if like if you're in a group and like only
Good job, Dr.
and only one. Oh, right here. Here, I got it.
Sucks.
Alright, so if you're in a team, right, in a group project, right, and only one person does anything, you're not going to get anywhere.
We've now been talking for about 10 minutes, and most of these conversations seem like they've been about like the last section of the book, right? I want us to start moving our conversation to talking about the book as a whole, not just the last section of the book. So here are some questions I want you to think about. How have different characters and themes developed over the course of the book? How have they changed, perhaps, but stayed the same? You might also start thinking about some of the stylistic choices that the author has made in the book. For example, this would be a great book to talk about with the different narrators that the book has and things like that. So what are different things you're noticing that the author does? And in Martian Chronicles, you might think about like different stories in that collection. And then I also want us to start thinking about authors' bigger messages. What are some takeaways? Why did the author write this book? What do they want us to know or do after having read this book? And this is a good one to start thinking about your projects. Okay, so let's make sure we end up landing on that. I'm going to give us about just under 10 minutes to start talking about the book as a whole. Ready? Take it away, go.
We were kind of already talking about the book as a whole. So, yeah. Where were we? The mic fell.
Yeah.
I don't like a bunch of different talking about how other people need to know. You said something about
No, it was a group effort. Something
Yeah. So if you're in a group and like only one person's working, you're not gonna get anything done. So although like the book kind of portrays like how like you only really need one person, you don't have to rely on anything else. It also means like it also says that like if you're in a group, there has to be like full
those set characters.
everybody has to work in unison and like put in the effort. It can't just be one person.
Yeah. I mean, you really see effort coming from all sides. Like, NASA put so much effort and so much time and so much money into this. But, I mean, and all his crew members did that as well. And so, it wasn't that big of a goal. Like, I mean, it's sure, it's pretty important what happens, but I mean, it's not like exponentially more important than anything else that NASA has done. And so, I mean, it kind of shows how far people would go. It's kind of compassion. Everyone was being compassionate to him because you know he's a person. They're risking a lot, putting a lot on the line just to save one person. So, I mean, I know it's not really one of the themes, but compassion kind of shows itself here.
How do you think fear motivates Mark? Like, how do you think fear motivates Mark to succeed?
Well, I think that fear like pushed him to like get communication with like NASA, start growing his own food. Because without fear, I think that he would have just died. Like, because he had to learn how to grow potatoes. Because without that, he would just like straight up just die. Because he said that he had like only a certain amount of days without ration food, but with ration food he had more, you know.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm getting my point across clear, but like.
So basically, what you're saying is like his grit and determination was a byproduct of fear, and it was like motivated by fear.
Yeah, kind of like fight or flight response, you know.
Yeah.
He could have just kind of accepted that he was gonna die. And like accepted failure, kind of like in To Kill a Mockingbird. Like he knew that he was kind of set up for failure, but he still persevered through it to get to his end goal and do the greater good, really. So you can see how he chose to fight in the fight or flight response. So.
Yeah, but like, what do you think that the author is trying to communicate about?
How do you think like NASA, like when NASA disconnected with Mark and Pathfinder, right? Like, how do you think like if you were in like the position of NASA, right? Like, how do you feel like having no control over the situation? Because like I feel like that's like a big that's an important theme, like having like control or having no control of a certain situation depending on your position.
Yeah, like power and control. I mean, they're really taking a big risk pursuing this, and and they have done some. They did kind of mess up, and there were a lot of problems with kind of like ethics, like telling the crew that he died or he didn't die, and they put a lot on the line, but they really had control, even in situations. I mean, everyone in the situation had control, even when they were at a loss for power, when they were in a place where they weren't set up to win. They
So
were set
in
up to
summary,
fail.
what you're saying is like even if you don't necessarily at the moment have power over a situation, you can still work hard so that in the future you can make an impact, even if currently you don't have power.
Yeah.
Um, so here's how I think we can connect all the themes, the four themes. I feel like it's like fear is like the motivation for him to like persevere and face hardships so that he can get control and power of the situation he's in. I don't really think honesty or speaking your truth really applies.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe
No.
maybe like for NASA, like when they announced that he was dead.
Yeah, but that really wasn't like something that was a big deal in the grand
Yeah, there
scheme of the
weren't very
story.
many good examples of that theme.
So I mean, he was kind of truthful with himself. I mean, he used the truth that given the odds, he was probably going to die. But he motivated himself by telling himself the truth, which kind of caused fear. So that was another form of motivation. So I mean, speaking his truth to himself and keeping that in mind is kind of a way that he's helped self-motivate, I guess. So I mean, it doesn't really draw into the story much, but it's just kind of one example.
I feel like I can interpret, or anyone can interpret, like speaking your truth is like not lying to yourself and saying like this is a situation, like I have to deal with it. Not like oh, like I mean maybe like this can happen, or like you have to be straight up honest with yourself, and that's what Mark did.
Yeah.
He was like I have 300 days to live. I need sentence. Like this is what I have and this is what I'm dealing with. I need to make something out of it. So.
It's kind of miraculous because he wasn't particularly positive for the entire time he was there. It seemed he had a pretty negative outlook, but he still managed to use that as a way to motivate himself. So, which is different from what most people do. People will usually say like, "Oh, look at things on the bright side, and that will help you. That's going to help you motivate." But he really looked at things in a negative light, which I mean, internally helped him.
Yeah, I mean, if you keep on lying to yourself like about situations, you're not gonna fix it.
That's true.
It's like somebody like who's not good at a sport. They're like, oh, I'm good at the sport. It's fine. Like I'll just get better. Like they're not gonna work hard to actually get better.
Yeah.
Mark wouldn't have persevered and like did all the things he did if he was just gonna lie to himself and say, oh, I'm fine. It's like NASA's gonna take care of it.
Yeah, if he would have known like from the get-go that he was gonna live and he was gonna survive, he wouldn't have had that motivation because he wouldn't have that fear that he would die because he knew that he'd die. So I mean, he used that kind of being unsure as a motivation.
So when you say go back to the study,
We'll have time in a little bit to do some writing and thinking and sharing about where we think we're going to go in our projects. We're not quite done yet. But before we wrap up what is our last conversation today, our last book club discussion, I wanted you guys to think about something. So I know I came in well into the TCAM unit, but you guys have had back-to-back here two pretty different units in this focus, right? One, in Tacoma Mockingbird, you guys read that book. You all read the same book, the whole class. And you guys all wrote, you had the same assignment at the end of it, right? You had a lot of whole class conversations, maybe some small group conversations as well. And then we went into a unit where you got to choose the book that you read within a list. And you had these kind of small group conversations. And then, of course, you have a different final product as well, right, where you get to choose your final product too. So what I wanted us to end with today is just in your small groups, taking some time to reflect on these differences and think about them for yourself personally. How did you experience these things? Thinking about your overall enjoyment of the book. How did you feel about taking them? How did you feel about the book that you just read? And by that I mean the book itself, but also your enjoyment of reading it and being able to discuss it with the group. How well did you feel you understood the book that you were reading, comparing these two different experiences of TTM and this book? And then the last one is, how would you feel this, if at all there was a difference in your engagement in class with these two different experiences? So let's just take, 4 or 5 minutes as a small group and talk through, just reflecting on, again, these two experiences. How did you feel about them? What was your experience? Talk it out. Go.
Okay, so I feel like with The Martian, they really kind of put
As much as I thought I would because I thought I usually like
really some complex themes into like a really enjoyable and fast-paced book, and like a really
I mean, I thought
it was really easy to like understand and digest. And
understanding of the book.
they put that in a way that was easy for people to read, and it was fun for them to read. So it was really easy to understand, so it was really enjoyable as well.
So I mean, I enjoyed the book, but like as of understanding the book, I feel like it was better for To Kill a Mockingbird because like the teacher would like explain and debrief the book afterwards, like the chapter, and so you'd get like a full understanding of it instead of like because like if there's ever like a confusing chapter for you to them, which like you can't like figure out a theme or something. It's better if you have like a teacher there, like to like debrief it, like which was what like we did during this Kill Mockingbird unit.
Yeah,
so.
like the context that we went over like separately in class, so like things about like the grit and the TED Talks and all that. It really helped. It really helped me interpret the theme of the book more and putting that more into context. And so, I mean, on its own, it probably wouldn't have been as easy to understand if we hadn't have been given that context about what grit is like. So
Yeah, but I feel like although there's like a general like this is what this thing means, like I feel like it's better if it's like specific to the book, because like the whole point is like, well, in my opinion, is like for a teacher to like teach you something, and like I feel like the teacher, if in the To Kill a Mockingbird, the teacher like explains to you like certain literary devices that the author uses to portray certain themes. So yeah, I don't think like you have that extra support for the independent reading.
I agree. What do you think? Did you like the book?
I like the book. I think that I also agree with Dar that it was a little. I think it was better to have like a teacher just be there and like debrief the book after, because sometimes there's like I would just be done reading like the chapters that we had to read, and I would just be confused, and I didn't know what to like. Sometimes I didn't know what to like write or like post it. So
Yeah, I get that.
Also, I liked how in the Kill a Mockingbird, like everybody read the same book. So like, because in our groups, like there's two other people, and like they may share an opinion, but like let's say you like want like diverse opinions and like you want different like outlooks and viewpoints on the book, then it would be like more beneficial to have an entire class read the book so you can bounce ideas off of everybody.
Yeah. In terms of engagement, I think I was a little more engaged in this book than I was in in To Kill a Mockingbird, because it was more fast-paced and it was a little more fun to read. But I mean, with To Kill a Mockingbird, you really had to kind of break down a lot of the themes in class. So I mean, they were both engaging in their separate ways.
Yeah, I love The Martian. The Martian was a very interesting book. I really liked it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And there were a lot of themes in there. I think it was a great book to pick, but I just like the idea of having a lot of people doing it, so that's more specific. Yeah.
And it kind of approaches these problems from like a really human and like relatable standpoint. Like you can really imagine yourself in these situations and what you do and how you feel in his situation. And so that also makes it a little more easy to understand than To Kill a Mockingbird, I think, because it puts it in like a more human standpoint rather than like watching it from the outside. Since it's like a journal and it's showing what he's thinking all the time, I think it's a little easier to understand, and I mean, just enjoying it overall. You can really put yourself in these situations and put yourself in the character's shoes.
All right, guys, thank you.
Yes, I agree.